What's good, you guys? It's your boy Joe Castro, aka Philly Fresco, and we back with another one. It's Philly the podcast. So today, I know I talked about it yesterday a little bit. I told you it was coming. So I'm going to go over the 3 wide receivers that we drafted. Now, obviously, we have like 40 different wide receivers right now on the roster. The top guys being Marquise Goodwin, D-Jax, Alshon, Greg Ward. You got other guys that had to fill in last year, like Deontay Burnett, Shelton Gibson had like one play. You obviously got JJ Arcega, or do you even have JJ Arcega? Hopefully he steps it up this year. Marcus Green, Robert Davis, the list goes on. There's so many wide receivers, but I'm only going to go over the 3 that we drafted. If you want me to go over those other guys, just, leave something in the comments, let me know, and I'll make the video happen. But I wanted to talk about the 3 guys we drafted, that being Jalen Reagor, Quez Watkins, and John Hightower. So we're going to start kind of from the back and then keep, go forward. So we'll start with Quez Watkins, all right? So obviously came out of Southern Miss. He's a 6th-round pick. The guy had 18. I'm kind of looking at stats because I want to throw some stuff at you, because looking at what he had is kind of crazy. So 4.35 40. The guy's 6 foot, 185. Kind of reminds me of D-Jax. He says he idolizes D-Jax, wants to be a lot like him. So obviously a little bit taller, like a couple inches taller, but kind of the same frame. Last year he had 107 yards per game, and he had 19 plays of 20 yards or more. So the explosiveness is there. He's not the greatest with the ball after the catch, but he makes some contested catches. He's a decent route runner. For the speed that he has, he doesn't create separation like you would want him to. That's one of his big knocks. If you look at his tape, a lot of his catches are contested. He didn't have the greatest quarterback in the world, but it wasn't nowhere near as bad as it was for Jalen Reagor, which we'll get to. But like I said, he's good on the intermediate routes because of the speed. He can kind of shift in between, cuts and everything. He's very fast out of his cuts, which is very good. But the big thing with me is the inconsistency of getting separation on routes and, just high pointing the ball. Sometimes you see him, he does track the ball very well, which is very good. But a lot of times he allows the ball to kind of take him out of bounds, take him out of the play. And if the cornerback gets any type of physical, he's just kind of taken out of the game, whether it's on the line or, at the catch point. He's not strong enough really at those points to really, win those battles. Now, if you give him a little bit of space off of the line, he's a guy that you can definitely throw a couple screen passes to, maybe an end around. Maybe we won't ever throw a screen pass to Alshon Jeffrey again. A man can wish. But I think he can do that. I think he can really, fill that role. I think he's a steal. I do think he'll be. I think all of our draft picks are going to be on the roster. I don't see Deontay Burnett. I don't see Robert Davis. I don't see Shelton Gibson. I don't see Marcus Green. I would love for Greg Ward to make it. I just don't know. We have 3 guys already that should be playing. Obviously with injuries, I'm sure Greg Ward will find the field, but I don't know if he's going to make the 52-man roster off rip. All right, so that brings us next to John Hightower. John Hightower is one guy that I think is a steal, an absolute steal. Watching film on him, he does a little bit of everything. He's not great at one thing, in my opinion. He has blazing speed, 4.4 40. He was 2nd team All Mountain West Conference 2 years in a row. So he has production. He's done well. He was All-American in hurdles in junior college. So he has a lot of athleticism. And like I said, a 4.4 40, you can't teach that. And I think he's even faster on the field. So one thing that I said with, Quez Watkins is his route running is good, but he doesn't create separation. The opposite is kind of true of John Hightower. John Hightower didn't have the most complex route tree in the college football, but at the same time, every route he ran very well, and he did create a lot of separation. And again, he has that breakaway speed. So if you watch him sometimes you just see him out of nowhere, he's gone, and that's what we need. A big deal with this is he's probably going to be like a slot guy. Maybe you throw him out to the outside. He's like 6'1", 6'2", 189. A lot of comparisons that I heard was to Todd Pinkston. Now, Todd Pinkston, as Eagles fans, we know he wasn't the greatest. He wasn't, he wasn't Ocho Cinco. He wasn't Terrell Owens, but he was a starter. So if we got a starter with, I think he was in the 5th round. I'm not 100%. But if we got a starter in the 4th or 5th round as a wide receiver, that's a steal, And I think his ceiling is a little bit higher than Todd Pinkston. I think he's faster than Todd Pinkston. The body frame and, like I said, the route running reminds me of Todd Pinkston. And he has good hands. He has very good hands. He had 18.5 yards per catch last year, which was 8th in all of college football. All of college football. No matter what team you're playing for, no matter what, conference you're in, when you're 8th in football in yards per catch, you were doing something right. Now, Mac Hollins had a similar stat when we first drafted him. So maybe it's not the greatest thing to go off of, but I think he's going to be a steal. And like I said, my biggest thing with him is getting consistent. That's kind of the big thing with these two guys, Quez Watkins and John Hightower. They just have to get that consistency. I know they're most likely going to be learning behind Deshaun Jackson. That's probably who they're going to, try to emulate their game off of, which I'm cool with. And tracking the ball is immaculate for John Hightower. John Hightower had some great catches, even in the Senior Bowl. He had one catch that it was a little bit overthrown, and it was a breadbasket catch just over the shoulder. It was beautiful the way he tracked the ball and didn't really lose any speed. So I think that we got a steal in John Hightower. Will he be a starter this year? Maybe not. I think he will make the roster, and hopefully nobody gets hurt and none of these guys have to step in right away. But I think a year from now, maybe 2 years from now, we're gonna see that we got a steal in him. Now, I think it's gonna come between Quez Watkins and Greg Ward, probably for like the last slot if we go with 6 wide receivers. So I personally, I say, keep Greg Ward, and if we can, practice squad Quez Watkins, that would probably be the most ideal situation, just because I think Greg Ward has proven that he deserves to be on the team. He's very reliable. He's kind of like a new Jason Avant to me, in my opinion. And shout out to Jason Avant. He definitely commented on a post in IG, so that's awesome. And if you aren't part of the IG, make sure to go over there. So speaking of IG, this is where I'm going to do the shout outs. Now, as you see, I am going to cheat. I did put up Jason Avant's tweet, and that's going to be one of the shout outs. But the other two, I promise, were totally random. So I appreciate you guys. We almost at 900. I'm trying to hit 1,000 by the end of the month. So let's do it. Now back to the video. All right. Now, the guy that you guys are all probably waiting for, the man, the myth, the legend. Maybe nobody really wanted him, but now I think we're all loving him. Jalen Reagor. Jalen Reagor has a terrible rap. He did have a lot of drop balls last year. In 2018, he was a star. He was a man amongst the boys. And then a big quarterback change happens. He had 2 of his quarterbacks just transfer. Then he was left with his new quarterback. I don't even know the guy's name. He was terrible. And I don't think people realize how terrible he really was. So let's go over his quarterback stats in 2019. The year that because Jalen Reagor's, his production got cut in half. He was still a very good punt returner, very good kick returner. He was actually one of 2 players in all of football, FBS, the whole, any division, that actually had 2 punt returns this year for touchdowns. So that's big. That's something he can definitely, obviously, bring to the Eagles. But let's talk about his quarterback. All right. You guys have probably heard me say that, he had the highest percentage of catches on balls deemed uncatchable. His quarterback was terrible. How terrible, you might want to ask. Let's go over it real quick. So his stats for last year, he had 15 touchdowns, he had 10 interceptions, and he had a whopping 53% completion rating. So that's Jalen Reagor's fault. That is not Jalen Reagor's fault. So that it was terrible, but some positives. He caught 4 of the 5 passes that were 20 plus yards. He caught them all 4 of them. So that was big. Obviously, that's something that you want. And he was 8th, and Wentz was obviously ranked 8th in the deep pass. So you marry that together, and that's something beautiful. Another thing that I think film doesn't show is his confidence. All right, his father was a Super Bowl winning player. He played for the Eagles as well. Obviously didn't win with the Eagles, but he was a D-liner for the Eagles for a little while. He says he's an Eagles fan, which is awesome. But that guy has immense amount of confidence. When you hear Jalen Reagor speak, he was picked in the first round. A lot of people didn't think he was a top 10, player or anything like that, but he did. And you can hear every time he talks that he feels like he was a steal, he was looked over, and that's what we need, We need a hungry dog, because we all know hungry dogs run faster. So I really like that. And then you hear him talk with, or you hear his father talk, Monte Reagor, if you want to look him up. And he said, which was awesome, he was like, I told him, as long as you work hard, you give Philadelphia everything you have, you're going to be fine. They're going to love you. They'll back you up, and they'll have your back. And that's what we will do, as long as he's a hard worker, which he sounds like. And he's very humble. One thing that happened, obviously I told you, was quarterback play shifted very hard. That could have been, and then dropped his stock because, his production dropped so much. But that could have been easily Alshon, Nelson type a situation where he was just like, well, my quarterback sucked. What do you want from me? Instead, he was lifting his guy. He said it was experience that he learned from, something that made him a better player, and that, it was fun playing with his team, and it made him a better teammate. Alshon, man, you got to take some freaking lessons from this guy, man. Or Nelson, take responsibility for your freaking actions. But anyways, so I love that we got him. I think he's going to be a great player. I think Jalen Reagor is going to be starting right off the bat. I see it kind of being Djax more in the slot this year, which is going to be very fun to watch. But I see them just pushing Jalen Reagor to outside, having Reagor and Alshon out there, and then you got Djax in the middle. You obviously got your 2 tight ends. It's going to be crazy. We're going to be hitting them on all levels of the field, which is what we want. That's when we were at our peak. If you look at 2017, when we just had Torrey Smith running and gunning, and everything else was open because they had to respect that deep threat. So I didn't want to go too deep into Jalen Reagor. A lot of people have talked about Jalen Reagor, but I do think those 3 draft picks will end up making the squad this year. We have to get younger, and a lot of the receivers that we have, I hate to say it, they're older. We gotta hope that they can make it 16 games. It's not realistic to think that they will. That's my opinion. But what do you guys think? How do you like the new draft picks? Now, if you want me to do like the cornerbacks, I was thinking about doing the cornerback depth next. I could do that. I could do the linebackers. I do got a couple of collabs coming up, so be ready for that. But other than that, you know what time it is? It's fly, Eagles fly, and we out here. Peace.